Right, welcome back and thank you for staying with Business Today. Now we get to our conversation of the day where I'm joined by Brian Gaira, who is the HCD lead, Made by People. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Calvin.
All right, now we're speaking about the SME sector and also the human designs that are going to relate to customers. And when we look at the SME sector, first of all, let us start from even how we are performing when it comes to the penetration, when it comes to the growth, because it's 98% of businesses in Kenya, of course, are in the SME sector.
Yeah.
So therefore, how are we in terms of the penetration, in terms of growth? Are we growing or are we stagnating when it comes to SMEs?
I think it's more of a stagnation because most of the people in Kenya or probably Africa start businesses as a form of survival, not with the intention of building a business that will last. It's because probably you did not have a job, you got into business, and that is how you'll build your SME. But then after a while, probably you get a job, you leave your business, or your business dies because of the changing times or several challenges. It could be any of the reasons. So it becomes kind of a plateau where others are coming up, others are dying, but there's definitely growth, especially in terms of digital businesses where more young people are involving themselves in digital businesses that probably would not need the brick and mortar setup for them to actually grow.
All right, and it's good that you've mentioned the digital sector. And when we look at the digital sector, very many startups are usually in that space where someone, maybe a young person finishes campus or the university and says, okay, before I get a job, I need to start something for myself. And you find that by the end of maybe 1 year, they've already given up. So what is usually the problem, and what are the gaps? Because you find very many, we were speaking earlier, you were saying very many businesses don't get to celebrate their 5th birthday. So what is it that people usually miss, so that you find maybe after 2 years the business is not working, after 3 years it has gone down? Yes.
So that is an actual fact. Most businesses don't live to see their 5th birthday, but even if you're going so far, there's some that don't even see their 1st or 2nd birthdays for one reason or another. Again, as I'd said earlier, the people who start businesses as a form of survival, but then there are those who start the Me Too businesses. I think you've seen that happening severally.
Yes.
There's a time we had the quails, there's a time we had rabbits, we had the cryptocurrency and all that, people putting in all their money, their savings and all that. But when people actually use the human-centered design, which ideally is focusing on who the user of the product or service that you're providing is, and building that product and service around that person, then chances of your business surviving would be higher. Like say for instance, if I come up with a product or service that Calvin will be using, and I look at Calvin's life, I know your age, where you live, where you hang out and all that, probably I will customize that product or service to your needs or to your wants. It could even be to your aspirations. But when your situation changes, if I don't adapt to it, then chances of my business surviving also become lower.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So therefore, let's go back and also look at when you mentioned digital and businesses transforming into the digital space. So now let's look at trying to make sure that at least we have human-centered designs and how they improve customer experience. Because human-centered designs and how they improve the customer experience, I believe what you've explained right now, when you know your customer, you know where they live, what they do and everything else. We're speaking about mostly digital space. So could it be that these human designs are mostly leaning towards the digital side?
Not really. I think that is an assumption that most people in the space make.
Yes.
It would be any product, service, or even a process. Like say, for instance, if your HR, for instance, was to make policies that revolve around you, that is a policy or a process that if they don't factor in the employees, then probably it will not work. But most of the time, human-centered design has been used in the digital space when people are building digital products, mobile apps, websites, and all that. But even in the brick and mortar space, there is still human-centered design that has to be used. Like say, for instance, say if I'm designing a cup, I have to have in mind who's going to use that cup.
Yes.
If I make it too big and it is a child who's going to use it, it is not human-centered. Yes, there is that inclination to the digital space, but ideally it can be spread all across. And the moment someone focuses, we like to say, obsesses with who their customers are, you will definitely build a product, service, or process that will stand the test of time and that your user will appreciate.
All right. Now let's also move on and look at setting. You've set up your business, or you've started a small business, and one of the main agendas or the main reasons for setting it up needs to be your target customers.
Yes.
Who is buying from you? Who are you selling to? So do you think this is an aspect that is usually looked over? Someone says, okay, I'll set up a business and people will just buy.
Yeah.
So do you think many people usually look at the who are my buyers, who am I selling to?
Yeah.
Do people really look at that?
Not really. The first motivation is normally profit. People think of how much can I sell this thing at.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So instead of really focusing at what problem am I solving with this product or service that I'm offering, and you will end up most of the small businesses are normally either survival or passion projects. So you saw like the way at some point you had very many motorbikes everywhere.
Yes.
And then at some point people were earning 500 bob per day from it. Then it reduced to 300 bob. Everyone put their money into the motorbikes. Uber, you've seen the number of the cars that are being auctioned because some people are finding it no longer profitable. There are some who are still finding it profitable. So when someone literally looks at who they're focusing at, what is their lifestyle? Are they even able to afford that product or service in the first place? If they're able to afford it, how do they even access it? And most of the people just focus on I'll buy this at this much, sell it at this much, without looking at the experience and the end-to-end experience from the first interaction that a customer will have with your product, their first time use, when they continue using it, their continuous usage, and even when they want to get off your product. Like say, for instance, as a media house, you have many shows, right? And you have kids shows for teenagers, shows for adults, the family shows. If I was watching a kids show 10, 15 years ago, then right now, then I become a teenager. Have I graduated with your show? Have you focused on me as your target user? So how is your product growing with your customer, and how are you focusing on that customer to be able to ensure that you consistently either meet their needs or solve problems that they have? Sometimes it might not be a problem; it could be the aspirations, right? Probably someone has some disposable income and they would want to invest it in something. It's not a problem per se, but it is an opportunity for you to build a business around it. So if you focus on either solving a problem or users' goals, aspirations, and also look at some of the constraints that they have in accessing your product or service, definitely your business will thrive.
Oh, very, very nice insights, because I've never actually looked at it from this side where are you growing with your customers from one point to the other, from what they used maybe to buy at this time, and are you still growing with them, or you're still focusing on the product that you started with? Right, very, very nice insights there. So also let's look at the profitability, because I believe you've spoken about first of all, we start a business and then we think about, okay, how much money am I going to make with this? So for you to make a profit in a business, and for you to make sure that at least you get to your customers the right way, what is the process, and how do you sit down and plan this and say, okay, I want to focus on human-centered design and make sure that at the end of the day, I as a business person, I've received my profit and the customer is satisfied.
All right. The process, it's a four-step process. We normally call it the double diamond process. So you start ideally with the discovery phase, where you look at, again, who your user is. You totally profile them. You get to know who they are, what do they like, what don't they like, what is their financial capability, what problems do they have, and then now you narrow down to what are their key pain points, right?
Yes.
And what are their key problems that they're going through, or what are their key aspirations that you would want to help them achieve. Then after you narrow down, you actually figure out how you're going to solve that problem or meet that need or meet that aspiration. You can have 1,000,001 ways to solve that problem, but then some of them might be practical, some of them might be feasible, some of them might not. You might have a problem, that you're facing, but then the technology does not allow me to help you solve it.
Yes.
Yeah. So probably I'm too ahead of my time, say with the problem, and the technology does not allow, or it's just too expensive. It could be a matter of licensing. You need a certain license that probably there's even no regulation. Like say for instance, before electric vehicles came, when you are importing, the rates were based on engine capacity. An electric vehicle does not have an engine. That is a whole new problem. So there are some ways that will be practical, some will be feasible, some will not, and then now we find the most practical and the most feasible way to solve that problem, and that is now what you run with. And you don't have to ideally build the entire solution at once. You can do what we call prototyping, where or do an MVP, that is a minimal viable product, where you select certain features or aspects of the product or service that meet all the most urgent needs for that user, and that is what you're able to pilot, test with the user, get feedback from them. That feedback is what will help you iterate or pivot the product. Like say for instance, some people had really good products and services, then COVID came. If they had studied their users well, they would pivot the product to meet the current needs, or for them to meet the needs of the user in the current situation. But then if that did not happen, or if they did not either do a pilot or run an MVP, it would be either too expensive or too time consuming. And there's also the fast mover element, where the first person to get to market with the product will ideally take the market share. So there is also need for that balance. And once you go through all those steps, you will finally come up with a product that once you test with your users, they'll be able to tell you if they're able to afford or not. It might be a fantastic product, but if your target audience cannot be able to afford it, you'll remain with a wonderful product in your garage or in your store, or a fantastic service that people cannot afford, or some people equate the price to quality or value. So who exactly is your user, and how are you being able to work with that? And once the product is out in the market, how do you continuously improve? How do you collect feedback from your users? How do you continuously improve to make sure that you still continue meeting the needs of your users? You still continue being profitable in case you need to do a price change. Say a new tax probably has been introduced. How are you communicating that to your users? Will they get frustrated if you do not communicate to them well about it? So those are ideally the steps that you'd follow. You look at who your users are, look at the challenges or aspirations, look at which ways are most practical and feasible for you to solve that problem for them. Do a pilot to run an MVP for the product, get feedback from them, then build the entire product, take it to market, and keep on improving and iterating the product.
Right. Thank you so much for that elaborate explanation. Now, let's also look at the mama mboga in the estates. Also, people who do these small businesses and who sell in the markets. How do we tell them human-centered designs? Because I'm imagining, okay, a human-centered design. How do you explain this to the mama mboga and tell them, okay, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to operate, you need to know who you're serving. So just explain to us how to go about it when it comes to people who are doing the businesses on the markets and also on the sides of the roads, people who are selling mitumba clothes. Yes.
First of all, I would not use the word human-centered design with them. The word itself looks scary, but the meaning behind it is not. But basically, I would talk to them about how they're engaging their customers with their product. For instance, you might go to a market and you find everyone is going to that specific mama mboga, or there is a boda boda stand and some people go to that specific boda boda guy, probably because he's clean, probably because he drives carefully. For whatever reason, the mama boga, it will be because she keeps her place neat, organized, even if it is on the roadside, even if it is a hawker. How do they approach you? They understand who you are as a customer, and they've understood how to approach you as a customer for you to actually go to them and buy their product. That would be the entire concept for human-centered design for them understanding who their customers are and packaging the product or service. Like, say for instance, if a mama mboga is in a place where there are a lot of bachelors and bachelorettes, and probably someone comes from work, they don't have time to cut their vegetables. What if they come there and find the mama mboga has already cut the vegetables, has washed them, onions, tomatoes, the only thing they'll need is just take them and go cook.
Yeah.
That is improvement of a product or service, that value addition per se to it. That they've looked at who their customer is, what their needs are, and conform to that. But then if they also decide to do that for every customer, the people who have time in their hands, or they prefer to do it by themselves.
Yes.
So how are you looking at your customers and giving them the service that actually meets their needs to the latter, to the very end, and how much will they appreciate it?
Wow. Right. Thank you so much for that. And because now I'm getting this, because it's just the simple things, especially like making sure that you're clean. If you're a business person, even if the shops in the estates, how you relate with your customers. All right. Thank you so much for that. And now let's look at the growth of this particular sector. And what needs to be done, especially when it comes to encouraging the people who feel like their businesses are not moving, they feel like they are stagnant, they are not making any profits, economy, where it is, inflation and everything else. Now, how do we move, especially when it comes to your business person? You are stagnant, you don't know what to do. What happens in that instance?
It will also depend with a couple of factors. What is the need for you as a business owner? Do you need more capital? Probably some people just need capital and they're not able to access that. Probably a bank will not give them that money, or a microfinance would not give them that money. So they would end up, say, borrowing from the mobile apps, which might be very expensive. So how do we understand your needs and help you get out of that? Say for instance, someone might have clients, but where they're sourcing their products is not consistent. So someone gives you a very good service, but every time you go there, you find this thing is missing. This thing is missing. Not a fault of their own. It is a supply chain that has an issue. So for us to be able to actually get these SMEs to grow, we need to look at what are their actual needs. Most of the time, we assume it is credit. Yes, I know finances are a big factor in terms of them getting growing their businesses or their SMEs. Some of them would be, say, marketing. Probably someone, their cost of production might be so low, but they just need a bit of marketing. Others maybe just need to streamline the processes. Others probably just need to consolidate the supply chain and make sure there's efficiency across the way. So I don't think there is a one-fit-all solution. It would be a matter of looking at the different SMEs in the different sectors, understanding what their needs are in those different sectors, and then addressing those needs based on how they would, how it would be most effective for them. Probably an SME doing a similar business in Nairobi may not be the same way like in Mombasa or Kisumu or Nakuru. They might be doing the exact same thing, but since they're serving different markets, they would face different challenges. So for us to move from there, we'll need to focus, again, human-centered design on the users that we're trying to solve for. The SME owners really understand what they need and help them to move from there.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us. We've come to the end of the conversation. All right, we were speaking about human-centered designs and how they help SMEs. The shop that you have at home, that business, you need to operate it just knowing the customers that you're serving and how you are treating them. All right, we've come to the end of this conversation and this edition of Business Today. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi. Stick around. BUA KTN is coming up next.